Welcome to Cold Brew Conversations. Today we're talking with our dear friend, Richard Alvarez, and we're going to talk about his mission. It's called the Peacekeeper Initiative, what he does for different events and charities around his mission, and some of the work we've done in the past for the criminal justice system, what it means to us, and maybe you'll learn a couple things on this Cold Brew Conversation. Welcome, Rich. How are you?
I'm well, Greg. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Really excited to learn a little bit more about you, because usually when we talk, it's me talking and not listening. Now it's your turn, buddy.
All right. What do you want to know?
I want to know, what is the Peacekeeper Initiative? What's your mission, man?
Sure. We're a Clearwater, Florida-based 501c3 nonprofit, and we help first responders, veterans, and others dealing with PTSD, other mental health issues, substance use. And we do that through peer mentoring and wellness activities. And we also partner with some local mental health agencies we can refer people to if they need more severe intervention.
Now let's talk about that for a second, because
Sure.
I'm pretty ignorant on most things. So can you explain what is PTSD?
Sure. Actually, people are steering away from that and going to just PTS. It stands for post-traumatic stress disorder. So they want to drop the disorder part and just call it post-traumatic stress. And essentially what that is if you experience a very traumatic event like a shooting, or somebody close to you dies, or you're in a terrible car accident, or
that explains a lot.
Things like that, your mind sometimes has difficulty dealing with that. And it sort of short circuits your brain. You'll have flashbacks and nightmares and different types of anxiety. You might, have anxiety if a loud noise goes off. It might cause a startle response. So it's a way that your body is kind of dealing with the stress, but not in a healthy way.
That makes sense, and that kind of explains your mission a little bit, because I remember you spoke about it quite often, and you talk about first responders specifically. So your EMTs, police officers, firefighters. As an ex-cop, I see that you can identify with that. And what are some of these activities that you do to help combat like the PTSD and the symptoms of, and what are some of the things you do?
Sure. Well, the reason we paired the two, the VA's been using peer mentoring for a long time. So it's kind of like a guy that's been there and done that and gone through these things. Somebody that you can talk to if you're starting to have problems, or, you just want to get some stuff off your chest. And the thing is veterans and first responders, they don't trust outsiders a lot. They have a big stigma within their community because you have to be the savior. You're the one running into danger while other people are running away. So you got to be the tough guy. And so it's hard to open up to people who haven't been there, because they just think you don't understand.
That's understandable.
So we mix the peer mentor with this wellness activity. So it's some kind of stress relieving activity. We do fishing with Reeling Freedom. So we take people out deep sea fishing. It's a great time to sit there and have conversations.
I've seen some of your pictures on that, man.
Yeah, it's a blast. Paul and Gene over there are just great guys.
No, and that's another nonprofit you work with, right? So
that's correct. They're one of our community partners. So they take veterans and first responders out on the water as a means of stress relief. And they want to take folks that have disabilities and injuries out there as well.
Man, talk about a dream job, right?
It really seems like a great gig to me. But actually, both those guys have full-time regular jobs, and that's something they do on the side, and they just do it out of the goodness of their heart.
That's really cool, because I remember, I don't think I met him in person, but I remember seeing some emails from him, because when you did that event, what was that, last month or the month prior?
January. January. It was called the Red, White, and Back to Blue event.
Yep.
Over at Bert's Barracuda Harley Davidson. So that was a blast. We raised some money so that now we can, since we're pretty new, We didn't have a lot of capital, and we started this nonprofit in the middle of a pandemic. So there's no grant funding available. So we kind of have to do it the old-fashioned way.
There's a will, there's a way, bud.
Yes, sir. And so now we can actually start serving clients, and we can start sending them on these wellness activities because those cost money. Peer mentoring doesn't cost anything.
Absolutely. No, that event was really cool, man. I thoroughly enjoyed myself, and it's like I just remember seeing that big blue flag up there, and just trying to get that in frame was like 2/3 of my visit.
That's Travis Emerson.
The sun wasn't cooperating very well that day.
With the big blue line flag, it's the largest blue line flag in the country, and he goes and takes that around to funerals and special events and things like that. He also now has a huge American flag just like it.
Yeah, what was the size of that thing? Do you remember the dimensions?
I do not know. It's
big
gigantic,
by
so.
bigger.
Yeah.
Just big by bigger.
So the other things we do, we'll do like scuba diving or Tai Chi or yoga or off-roading even. Something that's preferably outdoors.
There's a visual you in yoga pants.
Yeah, no, we don't want to see that. Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
No, I will shamelessly admit publicly that I own yoga pants, and I feel
that does not surprise me at all.
I feel very masculine wearing them. Very.
Oh, each their own, Greg.
I don't usually wear them in public because I understand public perception. Very self-aware, but I'll admit that I wear them. It's very free.
I'm glad you're in touch with yourself.
Don't act like you're not impressed, Richard. I am, however, impressed by you, bud, because that is that event that was something worth talking about, man. So.
Oh, it was the first time I ever did anything like that. We're probably going to do a barbecue and concert, a music event next. So I think that'll be a lot of fun, probably in the summertime here.
Definitely. As you do more of those, keep us up to date, man. We'd love to share it and talk more about it. And
it was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun. I have to say, I had a good time.
Well, just think about the people that you're able to bring together there, man. It's like, there was a lot of first responders, cops. I remember seeing a couple EMTs there. Yeah, I mean, you got some real cool support on that. So
yeah,
it's
we did. And it was a cold day, so imagine what it's going to be like when it's nice out.
Oh, for sure. Well, I remember it was part of a poker run. And I remember back in the day, poker runs coming through Bourbon Street, and it was a big deal. Like, it's a really awesome way to raise money for a good cause. So when we come back, Rich tells us what it's like to be a police officer, and you don't want to miss that.
New jobs create new changes to worry about, and that type of pressure can be overwhelming, creating uncertainty that you have no control of. It's time to stress less with New Employee Success by FNG Training on Udemy. Learn the ways to overly prepare yourself for a new job with tips, tricks, and training on Udemy with New Employee Success by FNG Training. And if you hurry, you can train for free. That's right, free trainings do exist. Stress less with New Employee Success. Don't forget to click the link below so that you can stress less.
I did have a couple more questions for you.
Sure.
To kind of run it into our next topic. What was it like being a cop? I don't think I ever actually asked you that. Like, tell me what was it like? Like,
well, it's interesting because I never really grew up wanting to be a cop. Right, that was not my life's goal. I actually wanted to be a lawyer. Ended up dropping out of college and getting married too young. So I was looking for a decent job because we ended up having a kid. And I had worked previously in the prison system in the state of Ohio. And I hated that job because it was like being locked up yourself. So I went back to school and I became an EMT, which I loved. That was probably my favorite job that I've ever had. And so I started taking fire tests because private ambulance companies don't pay a lot. And I just people don't leave being a fireman. That's like the best career because they can do it. You know, they work, if they work it right, they work 100 days a year or less because they have the 24 on and 48 off thing. They all have side businesses. It's a great gig.
Yeah, and their uniform has suspenders, man. How lucky.
That's true. You know, that's always a plus. So they, you know, if you don't finish in the top 1 or 2, you're not getting hired. So I said, well, what the heck? I'll start taking some police tests too. And I got hired. And, you know, I was a little out of my element, I guess. I mean, I didn't really know what I was doing. I had never even been to some of the areas that I was about to police. I started off with the transit police in Cleveland. So we're working in some of the poorest, most impoverished areas because those are the kinds of people that rely on public transportation. And so, you know, we also dealt with a lot of homeless and mentally ill folks. And so I was really, it was an eye opener. The very first call I ever went on was a guy who got hit by, I got to drive lights and sirens for the first time, which I was excited about. I was still in the field training program right out of the academy. And a guy got hit by a train, one of our trains. He'd waited for the big CSX train to go by. And he stepped out right in front of one of the RTA trains, and it grabbed him by his belt and pulled his stomach open, and his intestines were hanging down. And he's looking at me saying, "Am I going to be okay?"
That was your first day on the job?
That was my first day on the job.
Holy crap! And you didn't quit?
No, actually, I was, as an EMT, that was like exciting for me. So I thought that was pretty cool. So and he ended up living.
You're gonna be good, bud. You just kind of, you're gonna be fine.
He ended up living. They were able to take care of him. You know, we kept
oh, well, that's good.
Everything moist and covered up until they got there, and they were able to get him to the hospital and save his life. Of course, it probably didn't hurt that he was hammered and didn't go into shock. So, you know,
I mean, I don't know if we should put a PSA right here. PSA: being hammered is not a great way to get hit by a train. Continue.
So, but it does keep you from going into shock a lot of times. There is that.
We'll have to try not to remember that.
So, I was a lot of times I was nearly killed a couple of times doing that job. I was one time, me and my partner Marty were sitting at a stoplight, and a bullet hit the side of our car. And I wanted to get out. I figured I kind of knew where it was coming from. I was just going to get out and start shooting back, but you really can't do that because you're not in the war zone. You have to actually see who's shooting at you. So we got in the car. We drove to what we thought was a safe distance, turned around, got out and started trying to figure out where it was coming from. And the next one ripped right past my head by missed me a fraction of an inch. And I could feel the breeze as it went by. Hear it ping off the pavement behind me. It makes a very distinct sound. It's like as it comes by. I didn't know
that one. You never told me that story, man. That's
yeah. And then
wow.
You know, I could smell the gunpowder in my nose. You know, we were kissing the pavement then because you know, me and Marty were fairly close to each other, so it ended up going right between the two of us. And
wow. Now I think I've met Marty before, right?
You have. Yeah, he's still working as a cop right now. He's awesome. We've been good friends since 1995. So
how easy is it for you to get your friends to come visit you now? Like, hey man, you wanna leave the tundra for a second? Come visit your homie.
He's actually coming down next week, the week of the 15th. So he'll be here for St. Patrick's
I hear the weather's beautiful in Cleveland, right, Aunt Connie? I know you watch these.
Yeah, no, it's they've had a rough winter, lots of snow, and he works out on the east side, which is what's called the snow belt. So they get about twice as much snow out there as they do in the rest of the city. So
that's always fascinating for me. What's a good like cop snow story? Like, when is like the snow just thoroughly kicked your butt? Like,
the worst is when it's so heavy that a lot of the power goes out, and then you're out there directing traffic in the snow, hoping you don't get run over by somebody sliding. I actually had one morning, I had a car accident because this road was iced over, and I used my vehicle to block the road so we didn't get hit while we were taking the, exchanging information and all that. And the next thing I hear is boom, as another one hits right in the side of my car. And then 5 minutes later, you're boom, as another one hits that car. So, those are kind of crazy stuff. And, it's very dangerous when you're out on the roadside in bad weather conditions because, cars can't stop and people drive like idiots.
Just by count, off the top of your head, how many near-death experiences do you think you've had? How many near-death experiences did Rich have as a policeman? Find out after this quick commercial break.
Are you an Etsy entrepreneur? Ever wonder how tinkerers do it? Or are you a tinker looking to take it to the next level? Fret no more, random citizen. Take the Introduction to Manufacturing by FNG training to learn how you can make your own ideas come to life. Or find a local manufacturer to team up with to turn your invention into a business. Click the link below to get started on Introduction to Manufacturing by FNG Training here on udemy.com.
How many near-death experiences do you think you've had?
Probably 4 or 5 at least. I was almost choked to death, and the guy was trying to take my gun from me. He had beaten my head into the ground. He was choking me out, and the lights were going out, and he's pulling on my gun, so I'm pinning it with my elbow, and I have a gun in my shirt because at this point it's time. I had already pepper sprayed him, already hit him with a baton. It had no effect. He beat me half to death. He was 6'6", 360 pounds, and so I couldn't get him off.
Plus 145.
Yeah, it was a lot.
That's like me and another person attached to me.
Correct.
That is a massive human.
He's huge, and he didn't look like it. All he was doing was drinking a beer in a bus shelter, right? So I was just going to tell him to dump it out on the ground because it's technically illegal, and he didn't want to cooperate. And I went to grab the beer from him. He pulled back and it hit him in the head, and all of a sudden he started standing up, and I'm just like, "Uh-oh, this isn't good." And he just blasted me right in the face, bounced my head off a bus shelter, landed on top of me, was smashing my head into the pavement. He just went full animal on me.
Man, no wonder you wanted to start a nonprofit.
Yeah, that one really messed me up because I thought I was going to die for real. And, I was just basically saying my prayers, and a guy came along and said, "Get off the cop or I'm going to shoot you." And for some reason, this guy who hadn't said one word the entire time, hadn't listened to anything that anybody said, got off of me. And so we honored that guy. Normally every year they give out something called the Blue and Gold. It honors first responders and who do heroic things. And for the first time in their history, he got an award to a civilian. And that was the guy that saved me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you, whoever saved you, man, because I'm very grateful that you survived all of your life prior to meeting me, man. Because
pretty crazy stuff.
Well, I mean, it's hard not to be grateful at that point, man. It's like you probably wake up every day just like.
Well, at the time,
you haven't got me yet.
I started having all these flashbacks and nightmares and stuff that was symptoms of PTSD, but I didn't know what it was. And so we just tried to drink it away. That's kind of what first responders do, is they'll just go get hammered and drink it away. And so then that leads to some of the highest divorce rates. I ended up getting divorced. Yeah,
you turn into a statistic at that point.
Yeah, you really do. Yep. And eventually I had to retire under disability. But when I told my captain that I had PTSD, he said, "Don't tell anybody." That was his response, because there's still this huge stigma, like I was talking about, in the community.
No, there is.
And so here I am driving around thinking of driving my cruiser into a river, and this guy's telling me not to tell anybody.
It helps you gain perspective, because if there's anything I've learned, I've learned so much from you, man. you go back to like when I met you, what was that, almost, was that 2017? I met you when you were at PERC.
Somewhere around there, yeah.
It was, yeah. I mean, either way, it's been, at least 4 years. And the one thing that was shocking to me was when you started telling me like the recidivism statistics of like people, like the statistics of someone going to jail and then ending up back there. It was just staggering, man.
Well, it really is. I got interested in that because after I retired, I had been investing in real estate with a friend, and we turned in a guy that we thought was a scammer who scammed us out of $10,000. And turned out we had also unwittingly done some things wrong, and the FBI came after us instead. And this was at the worst point in my life anyways. I was already depressed. Right. I had alienated my kids, getting a divorce. Let's living with another cop who was also mentally ill. And, so that happened, and we went out. I was super depressed. We went out drinking, and he ended up shooting me in the head, probably at my own request, because I was certainly in that state of mind. Right. And, I survived, but I ended up with this felony on my record. Now, I was very fortunate that I had a pension, right? But a lot of people in my position didn't. And so once I got my head screwed on straight and I tried to go back to work.
I think you have more titanium in you than anyone I know.
Probably so. And so I was, when I tried to go back to work, I started to experience this discrimination that a lot of ex-offenders experience that I had never given one iota of thought to when I was incarcerating people. And now, don't get me wrong, I had noticed that there were some problems with the justice system in that it was almost set up to make people fail.
Right.
So, and I'll give you just a real quick example. We would arrest a guy on a warrant, for example, because he hadn't shown up in court. And so he would sit in our city jail for 4 or 5 days at the taxpayer's expense so that he could wait until the judge was ready to see him. The judge would see him, and he's indigent, right? He doesn't have a dime to his name. So the judge is ready to see him. He says, all right, you can't afford to pay. Here's another court date. Come back and see the clerk before then and pay your fine. Well, and then he would probably likely go off to another warrant that he had for the same thing in another city. And he just kept getting passed around. And this guy's never, ever going to be able to pay his fine. Right. Yet you just keep sticking him in jail, and it's costing the taxpayers a fortune for what? For $100 speeding ticket or something? I mean, it was crazy. So, I started to notice a lot of that stuff when I was a cop, especially towards the end, but it hadn't affected me personally. But when it affected me personally, I started doing some research, and I found out that
absolutely that's normal human nature, man.
I found out that America incarcerates more of its citizens percentage-wise than any other country in the entire world, including Russia and China.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty staggering for the land of the free, right? So, and a lot of that, is a result of narcotics and the war on drugs, which, from a law enforcement perspective has been an utter failure. You keep arresting people over and over and sticking them in prison, but there's always somebody to take their place. And we've spent trillions of dollars. There's an entire, you got prisons, courts, judges, cops, probation officers, all these people employed, and we haven't even made a dent. The price of cocaine today, adjusted for inflation, is the same as it was in the 1980s.
When we return from this quick commercial break, find out how Rich and I met, and some of the community programs we worked on together.
Have you ever heard of Pay It Forward training? No, of course you haven't, because we just made it up. Pay It Forward training starts with you taking our new employee success training on Udemy for free. And if you love what you've learned, you can buy the next level called Introduction to Manufacturing by FNG Training on Udemy, which is great because it's my training and I would make money from it. And making money is awesome. Pay It Forward training begins on Udemy by starting with New Employee Success by FNG Training. Then buying the Introduction to Manufacturing because you love the training. You know, you love the FNG training. Click the link below to get started.
Tiny homes, I think it was back in the day when we were working together.
Exactly.
But I drew such a passion to it because it was easy to identify what the people needed in that room, and they just need a shot.
Yeah.
Like just a shot. And the more and more I kept going down that rabbit hole, I remember looking at companies like Dave's Killer Bread. And then, you know, like when we used to work with that guy, Ronnie.
Base culture.
And, but even still during the trade programs, I thought there was something to that, because a lot of times, you know, like the shop floor is full of misfits, but it's like they're all still amazing people that learn with their hands. So it's like, I've
found that to be true a lot too, is that a lot of people who end up in those positions were people that didn't do well in the traditional school system because they don't learn that way.
Right.
You know, their mind is super active. They're super intelligent people, but it goes to places that maybe aren't the best outlets for their energy because they're bored to death. And, you know, but more than that, I mean, you look at poverty, mental health, substance use, it's all tied together. So, you know, and all those factors stack up against people, especially folks that are brought up in poverty, in that, you know, if mom's working 2 or 3 jobs, dad's probably incarcerated, maybe even, right? Or just not to be found. And so the kids are raised by the streets. They're raised by their brothers and sisters and friends. And it's real easy for them. You know, their examples are the local drug dealer because he's driving a Cadillac, or the rapper or the athlete, which are not necessarily the most realistic professions to pursue. They don't have an understanding of what they really could do and what they really could be. And that's what I loved about what we did at PERC and the STARS program in Tiny Homes, is we showed them that there are awesome careers that you can do, that you're perfectly capable of doing. You just have to have the discipline and the willpower to do it. And we'll help you with the, you know, if you need a bridge to get there, you know, whether it's, you know, you need a place to stay or you need a car to get to work or whatever it is, we're going to help you with that as long as you're serious about it and you really want to change.
And you could always tell who wanted it more. And that's where it's like, I feel like there's such an advantage that people have being able to grow up in poverty if they understand it and they can see that perspective. Like I grew up with not much, and that hunger that drives you, man, like that's why it's like, all right, I'll work to be shameless and put myself out there because I'm hungry, knowing I can't get from point A to point B if I don't. So
you just need somebody to focus you and point you in the right direction, you know what I mean, and give you the tools that you need to succeed. The drive is there. You know, the drive isn't the issue. The drive, the skill set and the direction are the things, and the discipline sometimes are what's lacking. And those things can be learned and they can be taught. And that's kind of what we did. And, you know, I was really proud of that work.
And that's where it's like, I'm really happy that you landed where you're landing, because there's such a cool thing about you, which is why it's like, you gotta believe you're here for some purpose, dude. Like as many times, like people try taking you out. Even,
it's pretty clear God has a purpose for me. And, you know, I'm hoping and I'm trying to fulfill that purpose. And, you know, I think I did my piece with the reentry part of it. And now it's time for a new chapter to help other folks like myself not end up going down that path. You know, all of it is related, right? So
for sure, man.
In this country, we have a very punitive view of people that have had a criminal conviction. One of the best quotes I ever heard though was, "Would you like to be judged for the rest of your life on the worst day of your life?" And
that's profound, man. That's real.
Yeah. And we all make mistakes, right? And the truth is most of us have probably committed a crime at some time or another, but nobody
I
was
jaywalk
looking,
all
right?
the time, bud. Don't tell anyone.
So, there's actually a book called, I think it's A Felony a Day or something like that. And do you know there's so many federal laws on the books that nobody's ever successfully counted them?
I did not know that.
Yeah. James Comey said, show me the person, give me some time, and I'll show you the crime. Because everybody has committed something, probably even unwittingly,
Fair enough.
was illegal. So, you look at the way
what else I did, Rich?
The way we hold on. What?
I'm not proud of it, but I ripped the tag off of my mattress.
Uh-oh. You better watch yourself there, buddy.
I would hate to be judged by that for the rest of my life.
So anyway, I don't want to get too heavy, but we look at the punitive view that we have of sex offenders, and I'm not saying there isn't evil out there. I'm not saying there aren't horrible people that deserve to be locked up for the things that they do.
Yeah, I mean,
sure. And not everybody's ready to turn their life around yet either. Some people, just like an alcoholic or a drug addict, you can't force them to. They have to want it. And those are the people that you're able to help. But those people should have a legitimate second chance. They shouldn't be discriminated against in finding a job. They shouldn't be discriminated against in housing, because you're virtually guaranteeing that they're going to go back to what they did before, and they're going to commit more crimes, and you could be the victim of that crime. So, think about it that way. Think about, can I do something to keep myself from being a victim, to save the taxpayers a bunch of money? Because this guy, we have to support them while they're in prison, right? We're paying for their food and their housing and the guards that are there and all of that. It costs a fortune. So isn't it a lot smarter to train them for a job and get them employed and be productive again? But you got to make that possible. You can't just keep placing all these giant barriers in their place. And, as my old boss said, good reentry policy is good criminal justice policy.
Hey, Rich, how can people find out more about Peacekeeper Initiative?
We can check out our website at www.peacekeeperusa.org.
Are you on socials? You're on Instagram, and we have some
We're
of those
on
links
Instagram
too,
and Facebook as well. Yeah.
Perfect. I got to the bottom of this, and I feel like it's the time is coming up, but we're talking about some really important stuff, and I would really like to keep this conversation going with you, bud.
I could talk about this stuff all day long. So
I'm banking
on that. I know I dumped a lot of crap on you, but hopefully you got something out of it.
Thanks for watching Cold Brew Conversations. Don't forget to like our video and subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay up to date on what's brewing.